This is Carly Farritor interviewing Bill and Sandy Reno on November 25th, 2017 in Alliance, Nebraska at around 11:30 a.m. So, Bill, I'm just going to ask you some personal questions. When and where were you born?
I was born in February 8th, 1946 in Alliance, Nebraska.
And then where'd you grow up at?
I grew up in Alliance, Nebraska at 1424 Toluca. Or 1415 Toluca. Holy cow.
How would you describe your childhood growing up here in Alliance?
Oh, it was really a time of innocence and freedom. We wandered all over the whole town or ride our bikes all over and just played with friends in the neighborhood, and so it was pretty special life.
What school did you go to?
I went to Emerson for my elementary school, and then we had junior high in the junior high building, grade 7, 8, and 9, and then we went to the high school, which is now was the junior high.
Did you have any career aspirations growing up, or what did you want to be when you were little?
When I was little, I really didn't have any career aspirations, I don't think. I wanted to be a cowboy.
Oh, that's funny. And then Sandy, did you grow up here too?
Yes, we did. I was born a year later than him. I'm the younger one.
You're the younger one.
But yes, born here and raised here, and also graduated from Alliance High School.
Oh, cool. So how did you guys meet?
I was a freshman at Chadron State College. And I used to come home some weekends and go to the dances at the city auditorium.
Teen Center, you know.
Oh, yeah.
It was the teen center then, and that's where I met Sandy. I didn't know her. I knew who she was in high school. I didn't really know her.
Yeah.
But
were you guys in different grades?
Yes.
Yeah, she was a year younger than me.
Oh, cool. So then when did you guys start dating, or just give me your love story?
Oh, yeah, right. Just for publication. My goodness. We started dating when I was senior in high school. My father didn't think it was too cool that it should be out with a college kid.
Yeah, we started dating in February, I think it was, of 1965.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And went to school. I went to school in Colorado for a couple of years while Bill was at Chadron. Then we met up in Lincoln. There the same year, University in Nebraska, in 68 or so, 67.
67.
Yep, and graduated from there, and he went into the Navy.
I was going to be drafted, and at that time everybody that was drafted immediately went to Vietnam, and so I enlisted in the Navy, thinking that if I went to Vietnam I'd be on a ship, so I wouldn't be in the boondocks.
Yeah.
And so I enlisted in the Navy, and after I went through the Navy training and went to school, the Navy school, then I volunteered to go to Vietnam because we were going to get married after Sandy graduated, and so I thought, well, I'll do that. I'll get that over with, and I won't have to worry about it anymore. And so went to basic training in San Diego, and then my first duty station was in Vietnam, and it was not on a ship. I was on shore duty, so I was that's where I spent my time. So the plan didn't work out so well.
Yeah. Did you picture yourself being part of the military before?
I did not. I knew I would have to be because of the draft. So I planned on 2 years in the Army was what I always thought would happen, and that's what everybody faced. But then after when Vietnam escalated and got worse, then 2 years in the Army didn't sound like a good plan.
Yeah. What was your understanding of the war before you enlisted, or?
I was really busy being a college student, and there were, at the university at that time, there were protests on campus. What was the name of the talk show we had? Every once a week they had
Yeah, the soapboxes.
They had microphones set up and speakers and set so people could get up and talk about any issue.
Oh, wow.
It was kind of free speech, and so people would get up and protest things. And so there were speakers, students from campus mostly, who would speak up and talk about the Vietnam War, and they were really against it. And
Wow. Was that at the university?
that was at the university.
Because I was gonna say I'd be surprised at Shadron if that were.
No, that was at the university. That was in
That's
the student
crazy.
union.
Wow.
It was inside.
Oh, so do you remember like receiving your draft notice on like what you were doing or?
Because I transferred from Shadron to the university, I had to go an extra semester to college, and so they give you at that time, they give you 4 years to complete your degree, and then you were drafted. And if you didn't complete your degree within 4 years, then you had to ask for an extension. And so I was really nervous about that, but then the draft board did give me permission, so I knew right away it was over with, because before I got out of the semester, I got my notice that when I graduated, I would have to go.
So how many years did you go to school? 4.5?
4.5.
4.5.
Mm-hmm.
Oh gosh, how'd your family respond to it all?
Well, my older brother, he's a year older than me, had got tired of going to school at the university, and so he enlisted in the Army. And so at the time that I was to be drafted, and he was already in the military, and he was headed to Vietnam about the time that I was going to be drafted.
Oh, jeez.
So they were pretty worried about everything.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel like, because I don't know, like in Nebraska, do you feel like it was more sheltered with the Vietnam, or everything going on, or do you feel like it was kind of people knew what was happening?
I think on the university campus, I think they knew.
Yeah.
But I think here,
yeah,
at home, I'm not sure that my parents really understood what this was, what it was all about.
Yeah.
I think in Alliance we were, as you say, sheltered.
Mm-hmm.
We really weren't. You would see it on the news or something, but it weren't a lot of people affected yet.
Yeah, because how was the media at that time? How did, were you informed a lot by the media, or not as much?
Not as much.
Yeah.
No, not as much. We had the daily paper, and we had KCOW and the Omaha World Herald, but it wasn't as dramatic as it is now, where you have 24-hour news service.
Yeah.
I mean, in fact, maybe that was better.
Yeah.
Not to have 24-hour crisis.
It was delayed. The news you were receiving it was delayed and processed, and
Yeah, because now we can
find
get
out
it
we didn't.
Instantly if you want, like right on your phone. Or
Yeah, and now we find out, like on that Ken Burns Vietnam show, how all the things we didn't know that were going on for all those years before this 1968. They were there a long time.
There were, I think nationally there were a lot more secrets that the government and the military kept than they are able to do now.
Yeah.
That's better, I guess, for us now, but
yeah, it's crazy.
it is.
So your life during the war, how were you exactly involved in it? What was your role?
In the war?
Mm-hmm.
When I went through Navy training, I was trained to be a supply clerk, which means would be like going to Sturdivant's here in Alliance.
Mm-hmm.
So if you went in there to get a part, then I would be the one that would issue the part. So that was my job, or to do accounting work. So that's what I was trained to do. And so when I went to Vietnam, I got in country. And it took 2 or 3 days for them to figure out where they were going to assign me, because I didn't know where I was going to be. So I just went to Saigon, and then they would send you out to wherever you were needed, wherever they needed a warm body. It was really what it was all about. And so my first duty station in Vietnam was, I went to what they called a YRBM, which was just a barge, and it was anchored in the middle of the Mekong River.
Oh, wow.
And we were about 20 or 30 miles from Cambodia. And at that time they were bombing Cambodia, so it was kind of a hot spot. But the purpose of our barge is the Navy had river craft that fought the war, where the Army and the Marines were did land. The Navy did the rivers, and so we had river craft that I think I have a picture of one here that I found. So those kind of
Oh,
craft
wow.
went up and down all the rivers, and they had crews. I
That's
think
cool.
like that one had about five men on it, and they had big guns on it. So they went up and down the rivers and patrolled the rivers. And so the barge took care of these people, and so we provided ammunition so they could rearm. We did mechanical work for them. These had a fiberglass hull on them, so they would bring them out of the water and repair the holes that were shot in the holes. And then we also had 2 Huey helicopters because we had a flight deck.
Oh, wow.
And so we took care of it was called the YRBM 21, and yard, repair, berthing, and mess. So these people could come there and they could sleep, they could eat. We had medical, some limited medical, but we had medical for them.
That's cool.
And just a place for them to take time out. But most of the time they were on their boats.
How many guys were like on the boats?
The boat itself, we might have had 200 on the boat. And they were doing all kinds of things because we had mostly mechanics taking care of all the river craft.
Oh, wow.
And we refueled helicopters and refueled the boats, and so we did a lot of things. We took the mail, so we distribute mail to these people, and then all the supplies were flown into us so that we could take care of these. So that's what I started out doing. So that was like a 24/7 job because we had to stand watch at night. The supply department was in charge of standing watch when the helicopters came, because usually they flew at night. They had gunfights at night, so they'd come in to refuel, and the guns were real hot, and so as they're being refueled, because the jet fuel was really spontaneous, combustible, they had us stand watch with fire extinguishers in case there was a fire.
Oh, jeez.
And so we would do that, and that was 24 hours, so we had to be on that because they could come in any time. So whenever we got a noise, so we'd run up to the flight deck and wait for, hopefully nothing would happen.
Did you have certain shifts that you would take?
Yep. So, but once you're on it, it was 24 hours. Then you get maybe a couple days off, and you have 24 hours.
Oh, gosh.
So no matter what you're doing, you have to stop that and run up to the flight deck.
That's crazy. And then did your job change over time, or did you keep the same?
I was still supply. We issued parts, and I did that. That's all I did right there. And then I did that for 3 months. And so the barge, we sat there, and once in a while the VC would lob a rocket or something at us, but we never got hit big time while I was on it. So it wasn't anything really. But then after 3 months, then I got orders to go to Saigon. And really what I had wasn't too bad. It was air conditioned and a place to sleep, and it was dry, and it wasn't too bad. So I got these orders for Saigon, and I asked people, what is this AFLS thing? What is it? What are they? And nobody had any clue. They thought it was some top secret thing. So it was temporary. So they flew me to Saigon, and when I got there, then I found out that I was going to be teaching English to Vietnamese sailors.
Oh, wow.
So it was part of Nixon's Vietnamization program. And so we taught English to the Vietnamese sailors, so then when they go out in the field, then the Navy people that were there working with them, trying to train them to take over these boats, they would understand English.
That's crazy.
And some of those students that did really well, then they'd actually send them to the States. They'd send them to San Diego, and they would actually go, like, there were some that went to a supply school, and they'd go all different kinds of schools, so you could go back and apply those skills.
How many people would you teach at once? Was it kind of like a normal classroom, or?
Yeah, it was. There were 650 kids in our school, and we had 2 shifts, 2 5-hour shifts, and we each had probably smaller classrooms. Like we had about 10 or 12 students per classroom.
And then what was the age group?
They were from, I think the Vietnamese had to be like us, maybe 18 to join the Navy, and there were some who were career military people, and they were probably might have been some in their 50s and probably in their 50s,
Wow,
but most of them were younger.
that's really cool. Did you make a bunch of? Did you have good friendships over there, or make good friends, or?
With my colleagues.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, we just had a reunion 2 summers ago. 2 summers ago
Oh, that's cool.
in Branson, Missouri, because the Air Force also had these schools, and the Army did. So we all had it, but our school was an annex of the Air Force One, and so there were like 63 instructors, and then we had administrative staff, and then the Vietnamese had their own staff. They had some administrative staff that were like the principals and things of the school. And so we had 63 people, and so we got to know all of them during that time, and it came and went a lot. When I first was in the program, the people that were there were like me, they were college graduates. And so most of them,
Yeah.
all of them are college graduates, which was really unusual for the military to really take advantage of people's degrees, but they did.
Mhm.
And so that was really neat. But then as I got further into the program, they were just sending anybody to the school. So there might be people that graduate from high school, some, and they just come out of the field, and so they started teaching. So they really weren't trained to do that.
Oh wow. And how long were you stationed, or how many?
So that was 9 months
9
in
months.
the school. Mm-hmm.
Oh wow.
And so I taught English and to the students, and then before I left, though, then about halfway through that nine months, then I became kind of an administrator, and so I started out being because they had to take tests every week to see how they were doing.
Mhm.
If they didn't keep making progress, then they were sent out. They dropped them and sent them out to the field.
Oh gosh.
So the testing was really important. So I was in charge of testing for a while, and then I moved up from that to being in charge of scheduling all the students and assigning them classes and assigning them teachers and all those things.
Was their testing just like how it is here, or?
They sit in a lab, like we used to have language lab, and
Mhm.
they had headsets, and so the test was oral in English. Then they would fill in a bubble sheet with their answers.
Oh gosh. That's
So it was hard for some
yeah.
of them.
Oh, I cannot imagine.
Yeah.
You might describe how you taught the classroom, because the staff didn't know Vietnamese and the
Oh yeah. How did that
Vietnamese
work?
didn't know English.
Yeah. I didn't know how that was going to work, but what we would do is we started off very elementary, and so we
Mhm.
had flip charts, and so we'd see objects. So we'd have a book, and we'd have a car, and say, I'd point to that and say book, and I'd say listen and repeat, and I'd say book, and then they'd go book, and then it gradually moved up till they were saying complete sentences and comprehending most of what was going on.
Wow, that is crazy.
Many
That's
of
really
them.
cool.
Yeah, so it was really quite a challenge. I had one class that they were giving them one more chance, and all 10 of them, not one of them understood English at all, and they'd been through the process. They just didn't get it. And so I would say, okay, class. They'd say class. I'd say listen, repeat. They'd say listen and repeat. They could repeat everything I said, but they just didn't. It just didn't register for them.
So how many like classes? 'Cause you know how we go like kindergarten to senior. How did that work?
I think we had 6 levels
6 levels.
by the time they
Mhm.
got through, and most of them, I think, some of them would try to drag it out, so they might try to repeat a level
Mhm.
once in a while, so they wouldn't have to go out in the boondocks, and so. But I think we had 6 or 8 levels that they had to go through once they got to the top level, and that wasn't a lot of them made the
Mhm.
very top level. Those are the ones that got to go to the States,
Oh gosh.
so that wasn't very many.
Yeah.
But the rest of them, I think they got a real good foundation, so they were going to be very effective for the
Coming,
Navy people
yeah.
that were working with them. So I
Well,
think it helped.
that's neat. So how did you stay in contact with your family and Sandy? And this is where you can come in
I
and
can come in.
yeah,
Okay.
say how it was to be engaged to someone.
We had written letters every day. Sometimes the mailman didn't bring them every day, but there was one that was sent every day, back and forth. We really did very well at that.
We did. One
You were
time,
able to do that.
the USO had a call service in downtown Saigon. And so you had to go down there and you had to go early in the morning and then stay there all day, and then you could talk for 5 minutes
Stand in line and wait
and
your
stand in
turn.
line.
5 minutes is not
And
enough time.
sometimes, no, and sometimes it wasn't reliable, and sometimes it would cut out.
Yeah.
You know, I did that once. But it was letter writing, you know, and I have a notebook. I just put it together last winter of the letters I wrote to my mother and my family, and because she saved all of them, and
That's
so
cool.
I put them
That's
together.
Mm-hmm.
I
Put
didn't.
them together in the notebook.
I didn't save mine. I don't know why I
Same.
didn't save mine. Once you got home.
But it was kind of fun to read it because it was
Oh,
really
yeah.
it's just kind of like a journal of what I was doing while I was there.
Because you probably forget about things that.
I reread those as
Yeah.
I was filing them, and I thought, wow, whoa, I was kind of grouchy.
Did you guys get to see each other in between the 9 months of you?
We had, after 6 months, then I could take R&R, and so we met in Hawaii.
Oh, that's neat.
So it was awesome. So we got to
Yeah.
spend a week in Hawaii, and that worked out. Sandy you were in your
Last year of school at the university, and so spring break, I get to go to
Oh,
Hawaii.
that's
So
perfect.
we had family friends there, so we stayed there, and they were Chinese. We got to see the whole culture of their life in Hawaii, and it was awesome. We had a good time.
I bet. So did you guys get engaged before you were stationed?
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
We got engaged before, I think after I graduated from the university, didn't we?
Yes.
He was home on.
Was that a definite maybe? Yes.
I think we were home on Christmas break
Yes.
or something, and
We graduated mid-year.
we got engaged then. I think. Yes.
We were engaged for so long it didn't even matter.
We dated for 5 years.
Yeah.
Then we got engaged.
Right.
And then I went.
You came home in September of 1970.
Yeah.
And I don't get a month's leave or 3 weeks
Month
or something. Month leave. But during that time's when our wedding was, and then we went. He was still in the Navy,
Yeah.
so then we went to New Orleans, was where his next duty was.
Oh my gosh.
So great.
And then to Boston. And then I I was trying to get an early out to go to graduate school.
Mhm.
So I got that all lined up, and so I got it early out, but I had to ride the ship because I was going to Vietnam. And so I got to ride the ship all the way to the Philippines. And then they took me off there and sent me back to, there were three of my friends that we got discharged, and they flew us back to San Francisco for being discharged, and then back to Boston.
Oh wow. And then
So
when did you come back to Alliance?
then we came back to Alliance in
December
72, yeah,
And where'd you go to graduate school at?
Greeley, Colorado.
Greeley.
To northern Colorado.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's cool. Do you remember like the last day of like being in Vietnam and knowing that you were going?
Yeah, I
Home?
mean that was our school. Every time someone was going back,
Mhm.
they always had a party, and so we had a party, and everybody was celebrating. And in those days, like now, when people come back from Iraq or wherever, they have kind of a debriefing time, and for us, when we came back, I got on the plane, and it's a 17-hour flight to San Francisco, and they warned me that when you get to the stateside, get out of your uniform immediately because people hated us.
Yeah.
And in fact, when I was racing to the men's room to change into my civvies, I had a person spit at me. I mean, it was. I've never felt that before. So I went and got in my civvies and then flew to Denver and then flew into Alliance. I mean, that was all one day. And here I was in Alliance. It was about 8 o'clock or so at night. And
Could you tell the difference between San Francisco
Yeah.
and here?
In Vietnam, I mean, it was September. It was cold.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Freezing. But so I just like that, and I was back in the States, back at home, and that was it. 30 days leave, and then there's nothing. Just keep moving on.
Yeah. That is, oh my gosh. So, and then now just kind of your life after the war, I guess we kind of discussed it, but then could you kind of just describe me your career path after?
Sure. Well, Sandy, we still had the Navy to finish, and so we did that. And Sandy had her degree in pharmacy, and so she was able to work. You can tell that side.
We lived in New Orleans for
Yeah, how long did you live
9 months, 10 months.
Right.
And so I was able to obtain my pharmacy license in Louisiana. And so I was able to worked in a Rexall drugstore, and it was great. And so it was close. I mean, he was on base. We were right there. You can tell in a minute what. And then we moved to,
Better.
yeah, we were in Metairie, Louisiana. Little apartment, had lots of friends that he was on the ship with. And this is a new assignment, so it's a different set of crew.
And the ship, they were just building it there in New Orleans, so it was brand new.
Yeah.
And so no one was on the ship, but we were in supply. We were part of the outfitting, and so getting all the supplies and things ordered to put on the ship. And so that's what we did while we were there. And so after we had been there for a couple months, and then my supervisor got a call from the people that make stupid decisions. That was the military. They call them bupers, and they decide where people go. And they said, "Well, I'm supposed to be in Philadelphia." And so the skipper, by that time, we had gotten to know everybody. So the skipper called them and said, "Well, we're not going to let him do that." So we stayed with this crew, which we were really glad we did. So then after that, then we
Destroyer escort.
yeah, it was a destroyer escort 1080, which was sold to Turkey, and now it's gone. Anyway, but that was really a neat time. We were just like tourists in New Orleans. We were just there for 9 months, and we really, the officers were our age, and so we just socialized really well.
Oh, that's cool.
And then we went to Boston. The ship went up to Boston to be redone, and
Then how long did you guys live in Boston?
that's the rest of our tour. The ship was
15 months.
15 months. The ship was home ported in Newport, Rhode Island, which is about an hour away.
Mm.
But Sandy had.
I obtained my pharmacy license in Massachusetts and was able to find a job at a hospital
Oh, neat.
pharmacy, and so I commuted and did that to, I don't know, it was 30-minute drive or something like that to that hospital, and yeah, we lived in Revere, Massachusetts, so all Revere. Anyway,
Which
an Italian
city?
community. It was really an experience. It was
Oh.
crazy.
Did you like one city better than the other, or?
Yeah, we liked the Boston
We
area
loved-
better
we
than New
loved
Orleans.
Boston.
Yeah,
Boston was great.
it's a
Yeah,
neat city.
yeah. We spent a lot of time there. We drove up into New England area, farther up in New Hampshire, Vermont, and went to Canada, to Quebec and Montreal. And so we did a lot of tourist things. Took advantage of it while we were there.
We lived in a two-family home, they called them. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
the landlord lived in the first.
Oh.
We lived upstairs with a gabled roof, you know, and they were an older couple. They were, you know, in their
Yeah.
50s. They were really
Mhm.
old, and so they couldn't understand why we were going to see all these things, tourist, you know,
Yeah,
tourist life, like, you know, places they lived there all their life.
and you
They
guys were
tell-
just young and.
yeah, but they'd
Yes.
never been to some of these things, and it was interesting.
Yeah, it was a good time.
Yeah.
And the military part was, it was pretty, at those times, it was pretty negative to be in the military. I mean, people should not be in the military. You know, that was you should run away to Canada and tear up your draft card, you know, at that time.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't very popular. I when the ship first got there, it was in dry dock, And so I took the bus down to where it was in dry dock. So I rode the bus in my work clothes, my Navy, and
Mm-hmm.
and people just stare at me. No one would talk to me. I just kind of,
Yeah.
So pretty soon it just didn't bother me. But that was just the way it was. And and so after that, when I got out of the Navy and went to graduate school in Greeley, then I had to be really careful. I told them I was in the military. I was in the Navy. And I had to say right away, but I didn't kill anybody in Vietnam. I
So
said,
let that
I
out
was,
there.
I was just an English teacher.
Yeah.
And then, so they forgave me.
That's.
And I had, I really didn't have a choice.
Mhm.
I had to be in the military.
Yeah.
But so it was really hard to get used to all that.
Mhm. And then did you come back to Alliance after Greeley or?
No, actually, we went to St. Francis, Kansas, and I taught English for 3 years there. And Sandy worked in a pharmacy.
I was a traveling pharmacist. I did relief work in several places
Oh,
before our
neat.
sons were born, and so I would go hit the road and go give somebody a time off vacation or something.
Oh,
so it was
cool.
good. Yeah, that was good. Tiny little town, about the size of Hemingford.
Really?
And when you were new in town, you were the teachers. Those were the only new people that came to town.
Yeah, I
The
kind
new
of like.
teachers came and stayed 3 or 4 years, and then they were gone.
Oh.
But then we had wonderful friends, and it was a great place. Jason was born there, so our first child was born there.
So it was a
Oh,
good place
neat.
to start out. And then we came to Alliance.
Then you came to
And
Alliance.
just temporarily, we were just going to be here and then move on to, because
Mhm.
we really like Boston.
Yeah.
We're going to a big city, you know.
Yeah.
That's going to be fun.
And then we got here and
Families were fun.
it was fun to be around family, and so we just stayed.
Oh, that's
And
neat.
Here we are.
Oh, here you are.
And here we is. But you had an awesome career and loved your
Yeah,
work
I
at school.
loved it. Loved working with the students, and it was a great job.
Did you teach at the how many years did you teach at the high school?
I was counselor at the high school
Counselor,
for
yeah.
35 years.
Wow.
So a long time.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it was. It was great.
And then now today, do you see a lot of similarities of what's going on in the world or in the United States, like during the, kind of the 60s and the 70s?
Wow, that's a good question.
Sorry, it's kind of a loaded question.
Yeah, politically, this is the first time I've ever seen this politically. I mean, this is scary to me,
Yeah.
and it's mind-boggling. I just don't understand all of it and where people are coming from.
Mm-hmm.
But for the military side of it, for those people who are involved in the military, to me it's really positive. I mean, there seems to
Yeah.
be so much respect and appreciation for what those men and women are doing, so that's a positive change.
Yeah. Do you see anything, Sandy, that...
No.
No.
Yes, yes.
If it's amazing. I mean, I'm thankful for the military families.
Mm-hmm.
With modern technology, it's just blows me away how
Yeah.
lucky they're not lucky, how thankful they must be that they can communicate more directly
Mhm.
with their loved ones
Yeah.
and see them, on FaceTime and whatever. So
Yeah.
that's got to be totally different.
Yeah.
But they still have those long separations that are
Mm-hmm.
difficult for families.
Yeah.
It's just it's a different way of life. But they
Mhm.
can so happy, thankful that certain people choose to do it for us.
And then, do you have anything else you want to say about your time serving or anything about Vietnam, the war?
I really don't. I
Okay.
think that's it.
All right.